Bonjour à tous. Thank you for watching. It's Christophe Langlois. I'm your host today. I'm the Global FinTech and Developer Ecosystem Marketing Lead at Finastra. And this is another live stream as part of our global hackathon, Hack to the Future, which runs until the 20th of December. So you can still participate and submit your projects. We've got already over 4,000 participants from more than 80 countries all over the world. And this year, we are aiming to redefine finance for good. So a very good cause, a very exciting event. And again, today, it's one of the live streams, companion live streams to the event. It's a fascinating topic. We're going to talk today about data and AI. So if we step back, first of all, the usage of AI in the fintech market is registered at almost $6 billion in 2019, expected to reach $22 billion by 2025. And AI might also be adding more than 1.2 trillion in value to the financial services industry by 2035. A recent survey from Accenture, which surveyed the C-suite executives about the adoption and plans, they said that 84% of all execs believe they won't achieve their growth objectives unless they scale AI. So 84%, and 75% even believe they risk going out of business in 5 years if they don't do so. I'd like to say as well that those issues and the challenges of data and AI applies not just for large financial institutions, but also for the smaller ones like credit unions, community banks, which also are looking for ways to automate routine tasks and focus on providing personalized services and differentiate themselves in the process if they can. Today, we won't talk about everything. It's impossible. It's a great topic, right? Every single of the panelists could talk for hours about it, first of all. We won't talk too much about, again, the usual suspects. Of course, data and AI help to drive and achieve operational efficiency. So we talk about OPEX savings, for instance. And of course, it helps to enhance the customer experience. After all, data is the new oil, or people even say it's the new air, right? So I'm very excited. I've got a great lineup of speakers / panelists today. So very quickly, we've got Anna. Anna is one of the top 10 women in fintech. She's got a very impressive pedigree and a lot of hats, so she'll introduce herself in a second. And she's got a passion, a lot of expertise in conversational AI and voice technologies again, as a way, among other things, to drive financial inclusion. So again, we'll make sure to touch that today. Then we've got Hugo. Hugo is a very good friend of mine. We used to work together, so it's great to have him today. A great leader, a great expert and passionate guy on anything data, digital, innovation. He's an ecosystem builder as well, so he brings something unique to the conversation. And last but not least, Adam. Adam is a colleague of mine at Finastra, so he's been very involved and is very involved in everything related to data. We recently launched our Fusion Data Cloud, for instance, platform proposition. And Adam, I shall say as well, you wrote recently that data scientists hold the sexiest job of the 21st century, right? That's the Harvard Business Review. So, so congratulations for that. We might touch that or not during the conversation. But now I'm going to give the mic to Anna. And Anna will talk about herself and the topic of data and AI. So thank you, Anna. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Christophe, and hello and welcome, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon. My name is Anna Mai, and as Christophe said, I do wear different hats. So I'm a senior lecturer at Center for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship in London. When I curated and I teach online course on the conversation AI, from chatbots to virtual assistants, and this is totally focused on banking and finance. I'm also co-author of the AI book, and now I'm building collaboration models between banks and fintech startups, especially or particularly in the area of open banking and AI. I've been in payments and financial innovation for 20 years, having worked for multinational corporations, including Citigroup, PwC, or T-Mobile. And now I'm shifting towards knowledge sharing. So I'm an advisor, I'm a mentor. I work for Travel Capital VC fund, focused on fintech and biotech. I'm also mentoring multiple startups around the world and part of WBAF, which stands for World Business Angels Investment Forum. And I'm also the expert and jury member of European Innovation Council. So as I said, I do speak at different industry events. I share my knowledge, I teach, I lecture, and I mentor and advise. It's my great pleasure to be here. So thank you for your invitation, Christophe and Finastra.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for the intro. And now we've got Hugo. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Christophe, for the invite. It's an honor and a pleasure to share the screen, in this case, with all of the panelists. So as Christophe briefly mentioned, I've been working in the consulting space in digital and data for quite a while now. And I've worked across a variety of sectors, funnily enough, always partnering with financial services in one way or another. I've come across from a digital platform into data and data monetization through emerging technologies such as AI and blockchain, both with tremendous implications in the financial services industry, and obviously consulting space with IBM, Accenture, now KPMG. Mostly focused around what does all of this data and what this abundance of technologies and tools means for the purpose of the industry. What is going to be the role of financial services in the future, and how are they going to reinvent themselves into the other industries?
Okay, thank you very much, Hugo. I was trying to unmute myself. Thank you for the intro. And then again, last but not least, we've got Adam from Finastra, so a colleague of mine. Adam, the floor is yours. You're muted, you're muted, you're muted.
Hello all, very, very excited to be here. Thank you so much, Christophe, for having me. I'm Adam Lieberman, and I'm the head of artificial intelligence and machine learning for Finastra. Finastra has some incredible data sources across so many different financial lines of business, from lending to payments to retail banking to treasuries and capital markets. And I work with our data science teams to strategize and build artificial intelligence and machine learning based solutions, from anything like a proof of concept to showcase an idea to a full-blown production implementation of a model or a component embedded in the products and services that we offer. So it's an incredible time for AI and financial services, and it's incredibly exciting to be at the forefront, helping lead these initiatives.
Thank you, Adam. So thank you, everybody. So we're going to start, and let me clarify something as well. We'd like the conversation to be as engaging as possible. So obviously, we are monitoring the questions which you might ask on LinkedIn and potentially on YouTube. I will go through the questions a bit later, but I'd like to start. And again, there's so much we could cover today, so we probably won't have enough time. I'd like to step back first of all. The financial services industry is kind of being commoditized on many levels with limited margins. The rise of super apps and platformification is very much here, right? And impact the very business model. How banks have been running their business for so long. Embedded fintech as well is getting more and more momentum. Bain even say that might overtake in terms of market value, cloud and mobile platforms. So what is the role of a financial institution in this new world? I'd like to start with Hugo, maybe. If we had more time, I don't know, we might even share your hack of your asthma inhaler, which symbolized as well how industries could rethink the way they engage with their markets. But what's your view on that? I mean, how important is it for institutions to rethink about their very role in the current society and market?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things to bear in mind to even start to understand how to answer that question, right? More than a question, it's a dissertation topic, I would say. I think the first thing to think about is one of the things that digital and data have forced businesses to do is to become more customer-centric, which means bring all of the different layers of functionality that enable people to execute a need buy something, trade something, find a piece of information, get through a barrier in their lifetime, take care of their health, take care of their loved ones, etc., etc. What does this mean? If you sort of decompose into what things needed to be before that, you have to take care of all of the lateral logistical issues, such as identifying yourself, paying for the service, selecting who the right person was, even choosing the way to get to the service and how you would get identify what the best service was. All of these 5 specific characteristics can now actually happen without you having to do a single action, right? So passive use of that information to enable seamless experiences mean identity and the ability to trade, to pay, become basic components of any service, right? Whether it's money or value. That then opens another interesting area of discussion, right? But essentially, we're going from that you need to go to the bank to be able to do something, to the bank or the banking service is embedded in the something that you're trying to do. And fundamentally, this forces financial institutions to rethink how they manage their business, right? But then if you think about when you are in that toward that service, it opens up a wealth of possibilities, right? And suddenly you have a push service that gets you as a part of that journey of that client, but then understanding more information about that client probably enables you to give a bit more, give a bit more added value service, be a part of their life cycle rather than being part of one transaction. Which means, depending on the sector you're focusing on, there are a number of roles that can actually be available for a bank to play. And any institution, and that's the interesting thing, right? Because typically the horizontal sectors, identity, payments, logistics, all of these are going to be able to be mastered by different sectors. So the big question becomes, how do you differentiate, right? And then you come back to the user-centric approach. How well do you know the customer? How well are you equipped to apply those tools? And how well is your human capital to be able to leverage that knowledge and that relationship and be able to play an active part in the life of those users? So I'd say that that's probably a good start.
Yeah, so I understand that to be embedded in your customer's life and not just being perceived as one just transactional partner, if you wish. That's great insights. Yeah, Anna, any views on that? So what's the new role or the upgraded role of a bank in this new world?
Thank you, Christophe, for this question. I will definitely echo with Hugo on the customer experience and the way new technologies transform people's life even, but definitely the way they interact with financial brands and financial services. So this is about the seamless, invisible, so at the end of the day, embedded FinTech or embedded finance, embedded banking, embedded payments. And definitely, if we talk about financial institution, this is a very good time or momentum to reposition, to rethink, to reimagine, to redesign the strategies. So, of course, banks, they embarked on this digital journey, on this digital transformation. But now with the pandemic situation and with the results of the pandemic situation, we definitely see how it accelerates. And it doesn't only accelerate. So there are like people who didn't or who haven't even used the banking, the digital banking or mobile banking. So for example, for the UK, there's a research showing that 6 million people, they downloaded the mobile apps and they really joined this bandwagon, the digital bandwagon. So they use mobile banking or digital banking, generally speaking. So there is like a new segment of people who are just being included with the financial services. So this is very much of importance. But having said that, this is very much also important how financial institutions are trying to adapt to this new situation. And this is not only about the acceleration, as I said, but to how to reposition, how to basically not only to enhance the customer experience, how to interact or how to cooperate with new entrants, new players, with fintechs, for example, or tech startup. So I would definitely mention here just 2 points. One is just the very collaborative ecosystem, because if we talk about financial institution, we should talk about different stakeholders, not only banks, incumbent banks, but also neobanks, FinTech startups, tech startups, even retailers, merchants, other companies who are joining this game. And in terms of technology, of course, AI is on everybody's agendas, and also open APIs. These are like 2 main trends right now. But I would say these are not only technologies, because what they have very transformative power, and definitely not only to transform businesses or industries, but also just people's life. So I would really underline this transformative power that I really hope that we'll have the chance to elaborate on that, because it's not only the technology, it results with some economic and social impact.
Yeah, we'll make sure to touch about it. Yeah, thank you very much. Again, it's great insights. Adam, so what's your view on that again, the new role, the great role of a financial institution those days?
So echoing off what Anna said, I think collaboration is huge. I think we're starting to see, even your smallest credit unions, really harness the power of data and realize how important it is for them to become major data players. I sort of like to think of, all these financial institutions as Lego blocks. You have all these individual pieces and you really have to put them together to build something cool, to build something innovative, to build something great. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more openness, and collaboration amongst, these financial institutions. For instance, we've worked with many, many different FIs. They all have amazing different sources of data. And you really think about how if you could combine this, and if finance is, becoming more open, these generalized models and solutions that you can build, really the potential is unlimited. And there's so many different use cases you could solve for. So I think, with these financial institutions, becoming more data centric and realizing, that, hey, we may be small, but we can still be a great player in data. And we want to leverage AI and machine learning. That, it's great for their customers, it's great for them. And I think we're starting to see, more and more incredible solutions come out of it.
And I think thank you. I think it's important again to reflect on the fact that we're not just talking like large financial institutions, international financial institutions, but even the smaller ones, as you mentioned, and as I mentioned in the intro, would and will benefit from technology like AI. There's a question from the audience from Alex. She said, how does AI help smaller banks or even credit unions? Of course, it's again driving operational efficiency and focusing more of their time personalizing the experience. But does any one of you have specific examples on that front? And then we'll go back to the higher level conversation.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that even the smallest of the smallest banks still have a lot of data. There's tons of information that you can dig up through customer accounts. You can do amazing things like knowing your customer. Better understanding your customer base, trying to figure out, ways you can market to your customer better. You can understand, spending patterns and transactions. Even these small institutions, with these sets of data that they have, you can solve the same problems that you're solving with the big institutions.
Yeah, yes, indeed. There's a lot of, thank you. There's a lot of questions we're going to target and answer to during the conversation. But so we talked about, again, the changing role of institutions and the importance of data. But a few years back already, back in 2015, like large organizations like BBVA and the chairman already said that in the future, BBVA will be a software company. That was quite bold, right, from a bank back in 2015. But now you see a lot of movement towards that goal, right? And you also see, of course, more and more projects around data, so to transform the organization, not just in more tech companies, but data-led tech organizations. How can you do that? How easy, how complicated is it to achieve in banking? Because culture usually is one of the key blockers. So again, do you have any, each of you, I don't know, Anna or Hugo, to start with, maybe some views and practical experience on how to infuse the internal corporate culture to make it possible to accomplish such a shift? And now, Hugo?
I can have a try.
Hugo, please.
So I guess one of the things that has come out from my experience is the biggest problem with culture is how you position what the technology is coming in to do, right? So when companies announce a big cost optimization project, or a big automation project, or a big digital transformation project, in people's minds, it translates into I'm going to lose my job, right? Which in turn makes people quite defensive, which in turn means they will reject anything you throw at them. And even worse than rejecting those things, it will prevent them from sharing their knowledge. And without their ground knowledge, these technologies tend to either work flawed in a flawed way or not work at all, at least from a value realization perspective, right? So what I've seen that has worked really well is understand that you need to think of bi-directional benefits approach to each use case, which is you're not just designing for the end user, you are designing across the journey of the use case, and you're aligning all of the stakeholders together, which means when you're getting an employee to do something different, they know what will be the benefit of them doing something different, which then sort of leads you to another bit of the conversation, which is how are you going to include that behavior as part of their reward mechanism? I guess the easy part becomes the technology data, which become the lower barrier. But the big barrier is how do you align these things together? And funnily enough, you do that with a little bit more data and a little bit more knowledge around how are those employees, how are those bits of the organization leveraging that information, and what are they trying to achieve with it? So if you build that win-win scenario, it makes a tremendous difference when implementing this and then realizing the value and even measuring the impact. Because sometimes we end up deploying a bunch of fancy technology, but we never get to see the benefit because we're measuring the wrong thing, right? It's not measuring the technological performance, it needs to be measuring the impact, measuring how people are dealing with it. What is the impact on real metrics, not just vanity metrics, as many of these projects tend to be.
And that's fascinating because when you think about it, that was one of the principles of the sharing economy. It's like, what's in it for me? Why would I share my data? Why would I participate? Why would I collaborate? And the very essence of that is, you're right, too often actually forgotten, or at least there's not enough emphasis on that, so both internally and externally. So I think that's a great topic. Thank you very much, Hugo. Hannah, your views on that, the culture and how to change it?
So definitely, I would put emphasis on what Hugo said, so knowledge sharing. And this is something that can be overestimated, and it relates to upskilling and reskilling. So of course, this is like a continuous learning process and within the organization. And so definitely this is very much important, especially when we will be talking about AI. And of course, that can make people redundant. But of course, this is a great example of DNB, so the leading Norwegian bank. So they launched entire, just very comprehensive reskilling and upskilling program for the employees, because they also launched a lot of chatbots within the organization, and employees can become AI bot trainers. So this is like an amazing journey and amazing job for them. And it's really just, it's also connected to internal innovation or in-house innovation and entrepreneurship. So definitely if employees are being engaged in the innovation process and testing out and piloting new solutions, that's like a part of the entire innovation strategy. That's another important factor. And employees can even become like the best customers and users of the solution. So they have to test it through, they have to test it out. And of course, we are talking about technology here, and you, Christophe, you just listed some of the examples that companies are positioning themselves as either software companies or technology companies. JP Morgan, I think it started from JP Morgan, but from some other incumbent banks saying we are now not a banking company anymore. We are a technology company with a banking license. And MasterCard is saying we are technology, we are even a data-driven company with a payment license. But this is not about technology. So technology, of course, this is a vital point, but definitely it's about people, about culture. But this is about the entire strategy of innovation, of transformation.
No, you're totally right. I mean, it's a very important topic, which would deserve an hour just on its own. The chatbot trainers, I mean, so there's a very nice Pokemon reference there. I'm just kidding, of course. Thank you very much, Adam. So do you have to add anything on that topic, the topic of culture and upskilling, reskilling, so talent?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, when you're in technology, you need to learn by doing. It's great to have the resources and the books and the online courses, but you really, you need to let your employees get hands-on with the technology. Let them build, the models, let them play with the data, and give them the resources to do so. And that's why I think it's incredibly important to do things like hackathons, where employees can take, a couple weeks or, a few days from their day job and really, get vested with the technology that they're interested in. They'll have fun with it. They can build some really incredible solutions. And I think, learn through doing things is very important for the employees and for the culture.
And on that point, actually, the interesting aspect of a hackathon is like you don't really need to be a hardcore developer to take part. That's important to mention as well, right? You always have something to bring to a specific any project team. So it's not because you don't code at all that you shouldn't be involved in a hackathon. I think we need to talk about it. Adam, you wrote recently 7 tips to help attract and retain data science talent. I won't go through the whole thing, but you say we need, as data scientists, we need the freedom to fail and the tools to experiment. So you standing by your guns, and you think that's an important approach to talent engagement over and beyond just data scientists?
Yeah, I think that's important. Machine learning and artificial intelligence changes so fast. If you look at the algorithms we use today, who knows what we're going to be using next month or next year or the year after that. But you need experience with all these tools and all these technologies. And that's why I think it's important to do kind of rapid proof of concepts. Validate your ideas, stay hands-on with the technology. When we get into production environments, and especially being in finance, there's a lot of regulation, and we are, to some extent, related to the use cases we're solving, limited to the algorithms we need to be using, for things like interpretability. But, it's still really important to stay up to date with technology. Look at the new deep learning methods and algorithms that are being produced and new feature generation techniques. So I think, if you're given the opportunity, if you're doing a proof of concept, try something a little bit crazier, maybe a newer algorithm, some of the latest research. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. You're getting experience, you're continuing to learn, and who knows, in 6 months, it might be a more mature technology that might end up being a production solution.
So very well said, yeah. Anna, so do you think that coding is a new way of banking, though? Coding and data, data mining, everybody should have skills, at least a basic set of skills?
That's a very good question. I just wanted to so thank you for giving me the voice, because I basically just wanted to add something and building on what Adam said. So I think this, the attracting the talent and of course retaining the talent in the AI, in the data science industry, and generally speaking, financial services is very important as well, because we have the gap. I think the gap is dependent on the positions, on the roles, but for the data scientists, it's even 30%. Of course, there's a new generation coming, and people need upskilling and reskilling, but definitely there is still an employment gap. So we need more data scientists, we need more AI trainers, and so on. And not even mentioning the women, because recently I've seen the research showing that it's only 16% of females in the AI. So definitely we need more very well-skilled people, generally speaking, in this area. And just answering your question, that's a great question, because my first background is in the humanities. And I always believe this is the best background you can have. This is something like artes liberales, and definitely it gives you a broader perspective. And combining that with technology, I also have, and the business education background, I also have an MBA. This is like a perfect match. Definitely, I always loved math at school and some computer sciences, but I don't have a formal background. But I really believe that this is something that young people should go into. So definitely coding, even if you are not a professional coder or a data scientist, coding is a kind of a new logic for this word, and just basically the new way of also discovering the word and creating new solutions and, of course, products and services. So yeah, in a way, I would definitely agree with that.
Thank you. Hugo, coding is the new way of banking. And second question, how good is your little one actually in coding already? Knowing the father.
He's
can't
good.
hear.
He's I'm not sure he's into coding. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not too sure that he's into coding already, but he's already thinking about it, right? He already said, I mean, he's wanted to be a lot of things, right? Computer engineer is one of them. I think, I think it's important to focus on both things. So I think what Anna said is tremendously important. I think understanding humans, understanding behavior is as important as understanding the technology and being able to wield it to the proper purpose, right? And I think sometimes, and I'm absolutely sure that with emerging technologies like AI, like for instance, even blockchain, which is more of a core technology, you cannot build something that is meaningful just with your traditional requirements gathering documents. That doesn't work, right? And it doesn't work for a number of reasons. One, because the action you're trying to get someone to do or you're replacing might not be directly linked to the outcome that is trying to be achieved. And that's one of the problems that I see with a lot of AI implementations is people automate the process. They don't really automate the outcome or get close to the automation of the outcome. That's a problem. But that's a human and a communications problem because they have not understood what the purpose, what the end result needs to be, how it needs to be managed. And focusing on something else that Adam said earlier on the importance of the transparency of how that was achieved, right? That is another element of difficulty, technical difficulty that is added to the problem. So I'll add a fourth one, right? What happens when you need to have a positive public benefit off the back of that, a social impact? Because most businesses right now are concerned about, about healthcare, obviously with the whole COVID situation, sustainability is another one, food is still a concern, education is still a concern. And there are a lot of businesses that are trying to figure out how can they deal with conflictive interests from a social perspective with their business model. I think there is a role for these technologies to play in enabling, whether it is from understanding the information and providing some of that exhaust data, as we used to call it 5 years ago, and making it available for research purposes for a social cause, whether it's having a direct impact and measuring that impact. So I think that you need to bear this in mind, and you need to have almost like a three-way education program. You need to have a technical education, which is super important. I would say even more than just data science and machine learning and AI across its different branches. I would say even data, right? There's a tremendous lack of people that understand data governance, understand data quality, understand efficient information architectures, and are then able to build this into the core of the technology infrastructure of a company. And I'll remind you, if this is not in place, anything you build on the surface around AI is continuously going to be this clunky POC because you are never going to be able to scale it in a way that it's embedded into the organization. And for AI and other technologies to reach that network effect stage in which it's being able to optimize the outcome with the client, optimize the way the operation is ran and developed, and have a positive impact, you need to have all of these things going together. So technical skills, educating users as well, and educating your workforce. I think there is a special one on the second one that I mentioned, because currently no one is paying attention to the fact that if you put AI on the product, chances are half of the people will be afraid. And that's probably because 80% of the articles going out have a Terminator picture on them. People don't understand what AI is. They think it's a clunky robot that's coming to steal your job or, I don't know, be part of a bad fiction movie. So I think we need to work on those three areas. and educate according to the level of technical skills they need, but also carrying in that human layer, because there's also people that need to understand on the other side what the role is and what they need to change to be able to enable that technology.
And thank you so much. I mean, it's very insightful, and to Anna as well. Just very quickly before I give you the mic, Adam, I need to go through the comments. So someone, first of all, sorry, 10 minutes ago, Anna, you wanted to say something. I didn't give you the mic, so someone say, Anna wants to say something. So that's Alex. Jessica said, interesting take, Adam. That was a few minutes ago. So again, I'm just trying to go through the comments as well. Thank you very much, Hugo. Adam, so I'll let you contribute as well on that topic. But and what I'd like to do as well is to talk about data a bit more, and then we'll talk about chatbots and voice. But data central, it's important that anybody or any department within an organization can play with the data to make sure, again, they can then create new products, new experiences, and optimize the business. But to do so, they need to have access to the data. So if you can touch the concept of data centralization, right? Is the utopia? Does that exist already? And possibly the topic of synthetic data, because we've got a lot of issues in security, sharing the data, anonymizing the data. So that's a big issue in financial services. How can synthetic data can help again drive the data and AI projects forward in financial institutions?
Definitely. I think data centralization is an incredible topic to talk about. Lots of these institutions have all these different teams, and all these different teams have all these different products. And associated with it, there's all these different data sources. So imagine, you're a data scientist and you want to build something, right? And you have to reach out to these teams to get access to this data. The data is not stored centrally. You have to move it around. It can be a very, very difficult process, and it can be very inefficient. So the power of centralizing your data is that there's one repository where your data scientists can go, they have access, and they can just build from it. The data is right there. They don't have to request access. There doesn't need to be any moving or ETL that's done to get data in their hands, and it allows them to build solutions in a much more efficient manner. And I think there's also other ways. That there's some teams at different companies where everything data related is accessible through an API. So I could just make API calls, or you can have a data lake where all your data is stored and all the data is there. It's really just having an efficient way for your data science teams to leverage each other's data from these different products and services. Mm-hmm. And I think going into synthetic data, this is a very, very hot topic, especially in finance, because all the data we deal with from these financial institutions has PII. There's all this personally identifiable information that's very sensitive. And this is kind of a problem I see when it comes to collaboration, right? Because, if we want to work with a financial institution, we have to get legal involved. We have to write all these anonymization scripts and, figure out these techniques, and really go through this entire kind of governance process to just be able to work, with a financial institution. And, this is cumbersome. It can take, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to get access to some data. And, thinking about synthetic data, if we can build these synthetic data models that understand, the distribution of the data sets that we have, and we can synthesize it and create, these fake records that feel real, they act real, they interact together just like our real data does, then, maybe we can ease up a little bit, and relax our minds a little bit around, sharing data. And we don't have to go through, this really, really hardcore process to get data. So I think it's more kind of around, the anonymization and sharing data that it really becomes kind of a powerful tool.
And thank you. I think those are two very important topics. I don't know, maybe Hugo and Anna, you'd like to add something there. Otherwise, we move on. But just before that, sorry, the questions, or as Pierre said, when Hugo, we talked about education, about AI for people to better understand. You don't have to answer as such, but Pierre said, how important do you think it's also to educate about what AI is not? So of course it is, and it's not. So I think that's a very good point. And very important point made by Hugo, that's Kaiser. Need to understand where to find the data, structure it, analyze it, derive insights, and use for decisioning. So sorry, I just want to throw that in the mix, but I think those are very good comments. Data centralization, synthetic data. Anna or Hugo, do you want to just throw your 2 cents in the conversation?
Yeah, very briefly, because if we are talking about data centralization, this is a kind of maybe not a topic, but very challenging and very difficult to achieve in reality thing. And definitely, I will give you one of the examples, the knowledge base, which is being built or just created for chatbots to train the chatbots or the voice bots, anyways, virtual assistants. And if you imagine for one of the banks, it took 2 years. Of course, it was done from scratch and in-house, because there are some in the industry, there are some existing pre-trained knowledge bases nowadays in financial services and banking. But definitely it took 2 years just to aggregate the data and definitely to create a knowledge base for an internal virtual assistant. So, and of course, it started from data identifying and then, clearing the data. And of course, just aggregating data. There's like classification categories. There's a lot of process involved, as you probably know. So this is really a kind of challenge here. And maybe one point briefly on what was said about what AI is not, because definitely every technology can be used for good and for bad. We know that. So definitely it opens up an entire perspective of talking about ethical, responsible AI, and of course also just the algorithms not being a black box. And definitely we don't have much time to discuss it right now, but it's a great point to be made here.
Yeah, the topic of biased AI and responsible innovation as well, and that's what. And I'll give you the mic, Hugo. But there was one of a comment as well from someone. Yeah, where does that's Kaiser again? He said, where does responsible innovation come into all of this? While learning, developing, and writing algos, how is it ensured that it's done the right way? Hugo.
Yeah. Oh God, so much to say about this. Right?
I know.
I think to start with on data centralization. So I'll give you an example of something that I've been working with a client of mine, which is, and it comes down to, so it's a financial services business, but it has focus on centrally having a data capability, so that there is a centralization element of right rules, a single source of truth for all of the company, data quality measurement, et cetera, et cetera. But there are functions that have very specific data needs, and their bit of the business, such as marketing, does not have time to go through your normal data quality, data cataloging, and then sort of warehousing technique that you typically apply to many of these data portfolios. And there, you need to think beyond the physical data, right? And one thing that we've been thinking about is how can we leverage having a centralized data model that can actually synchronize across domains. So rather than having to move the data, because sort of reiterating what Adam said, it's not only difficult, it's extremely expensive if you're trying to move large quantities, for instance, of trading data, and being able to then process it in parallel in multiple different locations as you're ingesting all of it, transforming it, and then shooting it off to 3 or 4 different locations doesn't make sense, right? So I think companies have to, and fortunately technology allows you to be a bit more flexible, rather than having to follow one process and having one infrastructure that answers all the questions. I think you need to separate the questions, and marketing has a very specific need, right? And probably 50% of the data sets they consume are external. So they don't need to, they shouldn't be ingesting all of that data and then processing it and then applying it to models. They need to think out of the box on this. So I think what we need to think is the value of the data is driven by the meaning of the data and the quality of the data. So as long as you're able to somehow measure that across functions, you don't need to physically centralize all of the data. The other point around synthetic data, I mean, I have seen amazing use cases for it, right? I think about health. One of the biggest problems right now with data, and specifically with privacy, is the fact that companies are still afraid because they don't know what the impact and the outcome of the things they're experimenting with is going to be. So they're afraid. They don't want to take risk, right? They want to reduce risk. And to reduce risk, well, let's not touch personal data. So they try and find ways to go around to get the equivalent of personal data that is anonymized, aggregated, etc. But the more you anonymize and aggregate, the less value it has, right? So with synthetic data, I've seen amazing stuff happening around KYC, around AML, around identity verification, around healthcare records, because, being able to create a data set that can behave like a real data set would, but has no risk concerns, has no risk implied to it, can severely accelerate the pace at which we discover some of these new areas, right? And specifically with banking being such a core, I would say, wheel in the machine or spoke in the overall machine of economy, it needs to have some sort of lubricant that enables it to sort of fast forward and create some of these capabilities quicker and more widespread and available to the wider industry. Just one final point. I think this is also the key to unlocking tools to SMEs and companies that are not multinational banks. Because one of the problems is they have a limited amount of resources, both human capital and financial, to invest in all of this technology. And right now, the money you have is still a driver of how much innovation you can get into your organization. And the real opportunity lies in ecosystem plays and platforms that can then enable even, for instance, individual brokers to operate as well as a broker that works for JP Morgan or one of the other big companies.
And thank you. It's a very important point. And again, we didn't really touch today the notion of augmentation of data and again, ecosystems and partnering with third-party providers. Again, so much to cover here. Just for time's sake, I just wanted, because we wanted to touch the conversational AI just in a bit more details. I'd like Anna to contribute on that. But if we talk about chatbots, Juniper recently said that successful bank-related chatbots interaction will grow 3,000% between 2019 and 2023. 826 million hours will be saved by banks through chatbot interaction in 2023, and 79% of successful chatbot interactions through mobile banking apps will take place on mobile in 2023. So massive numbers. Voice and conversational AI, there's so many ways to tackle it. So first, maybe if you can, Anna, talk us through a few use cases, even briefly, to give us an idea of the range of use cases and the marketing banking or financial segment it can revolutionize. And again, then we'll talk about the impact potentially on financial inclusion and fostering financial inclusion worldwide.
Yeah, thank you, Christophe. You referred to Juniper research, and definitely, as I said before at the beginning, that's like a massive trend, not only the financial services or banking industry. So this is a cross-sectoral technology, of course. And definitely, especially right now, so we can see the impact, the social impact and the economic impact. Of course, the conversation AI, so chatbots, text-based, but also voice bots navigated by voice, so virtual assistants also, or virtual agents, depending on how you call them. So they can really change the way people interact with banks, and they are growing in popularity because this is like a hands-free or even eye-free interface, quite invisible one. So definitely you don't need many skills to navigate or to operate. And definitely this is also the customer experience involved. And of course, you can interact via text, you can interact via voice. But talking about the use cases, exactly, we have like the main representation, the text bots. So we have some implementation in the Nordics, so like DNB with Boost.ai, which is like a leading conversation AI provider, and of course a lot of others integrated with main or major messaging platforms, because we touch upon platforms, and of course what we see in the world is like the rise of messaging platforms. And of course you can integrate the bots. This is one way of using the text bots. Of course they can be integrated into some other channels like email or even the banking app, but definitely the messaging platforms are the most important, and this is probably the most common use case. So you have WhatsApp, you have Facebook Messenger, you have Telegram, which are dependent on the geography. And I'm just trying to speed up a bit because we don't have much time, but there is like a lot of different use cases. We have like Slack and Slack, people with Slack. So we have a lot of examples of the text bots. And of course, we also have voice bots. So we use the voice technologies, and you can navigate, you can interact with the voice bots, and you can basically interact with your bank and other financial service provider using the human like interface. So you can talk to to a bot. And of course, Bank of America with Erica was one of the first use cases and benchmark examples. Of course, there is also SEBA in Commonwealth of Australia, HSBC, or DBS Standard Chartered in Asia. So, and I just what I have, because I really love this area and have a lot of experience in launching bots in banks, and so of course with third-party providers. I also teach the course on the conversational AI, so I have like a plenty of examples that I can showcase here. So really, and maybe I will just, last but not least, I will mention one example because it really shows the way it goes. So if we talk, we know there is a lot of mobile application, and we even have the saying there must be an app for that. So for weather, for sport, for everything, for entertainment. But now we can probably say there must be a bot for that, because just they have like different functions. I recently launched like 6 months ago. There is like a new bank, challenger bank, Zelf, and so the bank there is no banking app. There's only like a messaging platform you can integrate to. So now there are like 6 messaging platforms covered. There will be 4 coming, and of course there will be a voice interface. And what you're doing, you go, for example, to the Facebook Messenger, and you can just start a conversation with the bot. You can apply for the card, so you don't need to download any application. So this is really a seamless and embedded banking and payments experience. Just to put a full stop here.
No. It's fascinating. Sorry, we don't have much time. So, Adam, I'll let you talk about the bots here in a second. But just while we talk, because we talked about it the other day, like during a dry run, or it's also the question of, again, being agnostic in terms of channels. You say, I mean, the financial inclusion is driven by as less obstacle as possible. So, and at the same time, you've got people rethinking, the way we interact with financial instruments or physical things like credit card. Why do we need AR actually with a physical credit card? So that's all the conversation of, again, think over and beyond traditional means of doing banking, but that's still an interesting proof of concept there. I'm sure Hugo, you have stuff to say there.
Just a brief point on that, because this is a very interesting case. Of course, you can say why we need the AI and this, digital transformation on the physical card. But on the end of the day, so if you look at payments, you have the online, so e-commerce, and you have still offline in the POS. And the main challenge in payments is to bridge offline and online. And of course, it can be one of the examples how to bridge the gap between the two.
Yeah, no, you're usually right, actually. Yeah, there's ways to do it. And with Apple, for instance, and the new iPhones kind of democratizing potentially AR in the near future, we will see more and more tangible usage and meaningful usage of AR. Adam, anything on those topics? Like AI, chatbot, the importance to integrate within an existing system, for instance, using a platform, maybe?
Yeah, I think going back to voice and, chat, right? We as humans, we love natural language. We like to talk, we like to text, we like to use messengers, and we like access to things, quickly. So I think chatbots are a fantastic medium, and we're really starting to see them, the increased usage of them across, all these different generations and across all different industries. At Finastra, we have Core AI, which is a virtual assistant, to kind of help you with your banking experience, provides human-like user experiences for day-to-day retail banking tasks. You can chat with a chat bot, say, hey, what's my account balance? Can you move money from one account to another? Can you make a deposit for me? Can you pay this credit card bill? And it's really just bringing conversation to your account holders. And it's a great way for them to engage. It's simple, it's usable, and it's functional. And I think, seeing chatbots across all these different industries, is a great thing.
No, yeah, totally, actually. Thank you very much, Adam. Hugo? Do you have something to say? And then everybody understands, hopefully, like there's a lot to cover here, and we've got amazing panelists. So maybe it's going to be worth organizing a more specific, session for a specific topic within AI and data. But for now, so Hugo, and then I have 2 very short last questions, and I'm going to wrap up.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to be incredibly brief. I think if you think about this from a user perspective, I think they are data rich and time poor. So the more time that you try capturing their attention to drive them to a new platform, a new website, a new app, the least efficient you're going to be. So what I see in conversational user interfaces is the opportunity to go to where the conversations are happening, to go where those relationships are already manifesting themselves, and add that transactional element on top of it, right? It's almost like rather than thinking about payment gateways, we have to think about what are the banking service gateways that banks can enable on top of these platforms to enable their consumers to be more efficient in what they're trying to do. I think it's that simple.
Simple it is, ish, yes. Conceptually,
Think
yes.
about it at least.
We agree. And again, apologies for being the constraints in terms of time. Well, we all agree, right? We talked about the banks a lot, but we all agree that AI should be within the blueprint of all fintech startups, right? In 2020, there's always an element of data and AI capability. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay, good. The final question, and again, there's so many things we couldn't cover, but and I'll just throw a few questions from the audience as well. But how much is data worth then? Is there a simple answer for that?
The future, purpose, right? I think businesses need to become masters at data, not only to define what their future is going to look like, but also how it's going to change. And I think the big cultural change that needs to occur is companies are not going to land in a future state that is going to be the new safe space for their business. They're just going to keep transitioning as new technologies hit and new customer demands come into play.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Or
Yeah, I would say the data equals to use cases. So the quality of use cases. This is the net worth of data.
Yeah, very well said, Adam.
I think it's hard to put a price tag on data. Especially with the fact that you can enrich data. I could take one source of data and make it better, make it more powerful by combining it with other sources of data. I can then take these sources of data and create new features from it and build newer data sources. And I think this kind of goes back to the fact when we say data is the new oil, and it really is. We're finding it, we're extracting it, we're cleaning it and pre-processing it, and we're monetizing it. And I think the only reason that data may not be oil is because once you have oil and you use it, it's gone. Data lasts forever and it's stored and we can keep building on it. So I think it's tough to put a price tag on data, but one thing is for sure, it's definitely valuable.
Extremely valuable. But we still agree as well that in the near future, banks won't make that much money out of traditional ways, volume-based financial transaction, but the value will come from, again, their ability to leverage data and integrate within various experiences wherever the customers interact. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, I'm sure Anna, Hugo, I can see like you want to say more about those topics. It was just like a short hour on the topic of data and AI. So thank you very much for watching. There's still a few kind of questions or remarks. So first of all, it's the start of a conversation. Impossible to encapsulate everything within an hour. So again, great panelists. So please feel free to connect with us on social. LinkedIn, I guess, for everybody is probably a great first step. Also, please feel free to visit, for instance, the CFT website, because Anna built, co-design, and I think co-host a whole course on conversational AI, right? Which is a fascinating topic and a great course. Yep.
That's right, AI in banking. And yes, I'm a senior lecturer, and I also have like great contributing experts from HSBC, from Boost.ai, Active.ai, Standard Chartered, and Accenture. So that's a lot of use cases provided as well. So
please check it online, the CFTE. So you
.education.
Anna's name, .education. I'm sure you'll find everything you need there. And Hugo, so please connect on social. So KPMG, and Hugo is interviewed on a regular basis, so you can Google him. I'm sure you'll find some of his latest, greatest thoughts on the topics of data and innovation. And of course, Adam as well has been quoting a few articles recently, so please check him out online. Again, thank you so much. And now feel free as well to register and still participate to the hackathon. Again, we've got until the 20th of December to help us to redefine finance for good. And now I'm going to leave you with a short trailer about the hackathon. So thank you so much to all of you, and hopefully we can do it again soon in the future. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Christophe.
Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Last year's Hack to the Future brought together 1,080 hackers from 38 countries. 235 ideas were submitted and 122 published. Over 50,000 in prizes were awarded to the winners. It was incredible. Bright, motivated hackers from around the globe collaborated to build inspiring innovations in the world of financial services. From corporate and retail banking to payments and capital markets, ideas and new solutions were born. Now, we invite you to Finastra's 2020 Hack to the Future, hacking systemic inequality, embracing technology-enabled change, hacking through COVID-19. So, are you ready? Our challenge themes support inclusion and diversity. Help us amplify the voices of the unheard. Give the unprivileged the same access to tools and opportunities necessary to succeed in this life. Integrate physical and digital experiences. Find new growth streams and embed FinTech across industries. Accelerate open innovation with a global developer community, hacking around the clock, around the globe. We'll host virtual learning and network events and an online community where you can ask questions, share ideas, and get support. Enter for your chance to win prizes like internship opportunities with Finastra, waived fees for apps ready for our open innovation platform on fusionfabric.cloud, and other incredible prizes from our partners. Go to fintech.devpost.com for full details and to get started. See you there.